I'm glad it finally came out the way I wanted it to, because this was very stressful, guys. Making a 3D zine is not all it's cracked out to be. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Bree and I love zines. And I just got back from the printing press. Where did the zine go? I just had it, hold on. Bam! I just made a new zine. It's called Bree's World of Things, and it's actually a 3D zine. Also, I just want to say that the printing press I'm coming back from is Office Depot, and I highly recommend you do not print your zines there. This zine that I got printed as a sample, why isn't it's not focusing? It was a sample because I just want to see how it looks in print. I actually sent 200 copies to go be printed. I sent it to Mixam print, which is really great for zine printing, by the way. But I sent it to them, but I won't get it for another week. So I needed to see how this looked in print. So I got one copy done at Office Depot, and it cost $7. And luckily I had a discount and it went down to $6. That's not really good for printing zines that you want to sell, because if that were the case and I got this printed from Office Depot for $7, I would have to sell it in my shop for $14 in order to make a profit. That's insane. That's really high. And I don't want my zine to be that high, but for the sake of the sample, I went to go get it because I need to see how it looks in print, because it is a 3D zine, like I said. So that means that when the images are seen with 3D glasses, they pop up off the page. Can't really experience it right now because I don't have 3D glasses for you to wear, unfortunately, but I got it printed and I want to test it out and see if everything in here looks as 3D as I want it to look. The whole reason I even made this is because I was inspired by a man I met named Barry. And I met Barry last August when I was vending outside of one of my favorite local bookstores called Page Against the Machine. I was popping up outside of Page Against the Machine, which means that I have a vending table where I sell my own stuff. I was selling my own zines, my t-shirts, stuff like that. But it was one of the worst vending events ever. And not because of the way that it was organized or anything, it was just circumstance. You know, it was a very windy day and I was stationed outside with my table. So I'm outside, it's windy. Also, the traffic whizzing by behind me, because it was outside on the curb, literally. The traffic's whizzing by, everything off my table's flying off constantly. I'm constantly having to pick things up off the ground, and the gust of the traffic is making it even windier. Plus, when I got there, I realized I forgot half of my display, so my table wasn't even set up the way that I usually want it to be, and I forgot half my product at home. And a dog came by and peed on my purse. It was a bad day. It was just a bad day. But a highlight of that day was that I met Barry and he gave me his self-published book, because he was very excited that I was out there selling zines, because he's a self-publisher himself. He publishes himself, and he made his own book, and this is called Pop-Up 3D Discover Phantagrams, and it's all about 3D images that pop up off the page. And it was funny when I met him because he came up wanting to buy a zine. He wanted to give me $5 for one of my zines because that's how much it was. And I was like, no, if you're gonna gift me this book, let's trade. And he was like, no, I think you need the money more than I do. And I probably should have been offended by that comment, but I wasn't. I thought that was pretty funny, and I was having a bad day, so it made me laugh. We had a great conversation about my zine. He bought You Kinda Suck issue number 3. He bought the zine from me, right? And I guess he went home and read it later, and a couple of days later, he sent me an email, and he was like, this zine was not my cup of tea, but it was interesting reading from your perspective. Hope you like my book. So I was like, oh, that's fair. You know, he was older, but we did not trade. He gave me money for my zine and also gifted me this book. He gave this to me for free, and the book comes with 3D glasses, and he told me to put them on and check out the pics in the page, or in the book. So I went like this and did like that, and then I opened up the pages and was looking at them, and it's wild seeing this stuff. It's weird seeing the depth of these photos. These images are popping up off the screen. It's very interesting. I learned so much about phantagrams, which are these 3D images. It's called a phantagram because specifically phantagrams are 3D. So they lift up off the page and it looks three-dimensional. You could see the depth of the photo by looking at it through these 3D glasses, right? But a phantagram also works in a weird way where not only is it three-dimensional so you can tell the depth of it, it seems to pop up at you. It seems used to like look like you could see it from different angles. So when I'm looking at Barry's book and looking at these images, you want to view it from a 45-degree angle from up above. So basically you lay the book flat like this, either on a desk or on your knees or whatever, and then you're looking at it from above at a 45-degree angle, and you can look at it from different perspectives and see the image almost pop up, almost like a hologram, right? So that's what a phantogram is. It pops up off the page in a very special way, very, very fun. And on the back of Barry's book, it says, "We love making 3D pictures and so can you. With any digital camera, a computer, some time, and patience, you could have a whole lot of fun making your own 3D images." I spent months learning how to make my own 3D photos like Barry. All of that to say, I finally got it down in a way that was truly acceptable for me, because I'm saying this remembering all the fails I had. It was a lot of trial and error to try to get this down. Barry really inspired me. He also has a lot of tutorials, and he has a 3D blog where he posts 3D stuff all the time. So I sought him out as sort of a mentor, and I would look at his photos, I would watch his videos, I would look at the tutorials, learning how to use the software, learning how to take the photos to be able to make them 3D. And I made a lot of mistakes, and it was very frustrating. I cried a lot. I was frustrated because it was contradicting what I wanted in my head, right? I had it set that I wanted to make this zine, but as the months went on and I was failing a lot, it was becoming quite apparent that I was bad at it. I was really bad at it. So that's where this zine comes in. This is the zine I made this month. It's not focusing. It's called Bree's World of Things, and it is my own 3D zine. So if you didn't know, I do have a monthly zine club over on Patreon. That just means that I create a new zine every single month specifically for them, because they're fueling it. They're supporting me. They're supporting me and my chaos, like me trying to learn this 3D thing and crying and just being so frustrated with it for months. My zine club supports stuff like that. They support my creative journey in that way. And as a reward, because there's different tiers on Patreon. So either you can join people's Patreon for free, maybe there's a really low tier like $1, and maybe there's really high tiers where you get physical goods in the mail. The way mine works is that you can join for free, and usually that's kind of like a newsletter. So you get updates about me, updates about my shop, updates about my creative journey, and sometimes free early access videos to stuff like this on YouTube. I'll post it earlier on there for them. There's also a $1 tier, which is the tip jar tier, and that's where you get other early access stuff. I also have a $5 tier, which is a digital zine tier. So the monthly zine that I make every month exclusively for them, the $5 tier gets to view it digitally. And I also have a weekly podcast called Zine Club Radio. And on Zine Club Radio, I basically talk about what I think about zines, or the current state of my zines, or I talk about the evolution of me, what's going on in my life. You really get a deeper insight look to me as a creator. And then the $10 tier is the IRL tier, and they're the ones that get the physical zine in the mail. They also get a handwritten thank you note from me, a jumbo sticker, and I address a bunch of envelopes with their address and their name on it by hand, so it feels like they're getting snail mail from a friend. That's how I want it to feel. So that's what my zine club is primarily for. It's primarily for making the monthly zine. This month, for the month of March, their monthly exclusive zine is this 3D zine, but I really wanted to show you guys behind the scenes of not only how I made this and why I made this, but also how I run my zine club, because I get a lot of questions from people that ask about my supplemental streams of income. Patreon is another huge one. I really like the Patreon because it gives me a lot of sense of direction in terms of my work, and I'm able to challenge myself by making a new zine every single month, which is not really up to my club members. They're supporting me no matter what I make, basically. So if you join the club, it's like, hey, this is me making a zine every single month. If you would like to support that, please do. But the creative decisions I make are entirely up to me. And you just have to be aware of that before signing up, that there's really no consistent theme, but there is consistency. I do post every single month, and I just kind of wanted to talk about the behind the scenes process of that. So what I want to do right now is test out my zine to see if it truly reads 3D. Like, I want to see if when I put on the glasses and look at my zine the same way I looked at Barry's book, will it pop up out the screen the same way? This is the moment of truth, guys. This is the moment of truth, because I only saw it on my iPad, and it looked 3D on my iPad and on my computer, but I don't know if it looks 3D in print. So this is the sample copy, but I also jumped the gun and sent all of the Zine Club copies to print because I want them to print on this glossy kind of paper. And my printers don't really print on glossy paper that well. So I got them printed, but I won't get them for like another week or so. So it dawned on me after I sent them to print that I probably need to test it out before I make a bunch of copies. But I already made I already bought it. I already paid them to make all the copies for me. So I went to Office Max or Office Depot and got this single one printed to see if it comes out the way I want it to in print. So here's the moment of truth. I wish you guys could experience this with me. First page looks amazing. There's actually a picture of my suitcase and I made it 3D, so I wanted it to feel like you are actually seeing my suitcase in real life. It's looking pretty cool. The quality check is going well. Oh, and then there's a playlist in the middle. It's not 3D per se, but if you can see the lettering right there, I used these puffy letters that actually pop up. Let me see if I still have some. These stickers here, they're kind of puffy and they pop up. I don't know if you could see. It's like the camera's focusing on me. It's supposed to focus on this. If I take one of these off, you see how thick it is? There's like a thickness to it. I wanted to use that for the playlist in the center because the playlist is not in 3D necessarily. You can look at it through the 3D glasses, but it's not going to do anything. I wanted it to create a shadow so you can tell that it's popping up off the page. You could kind of see the 3D playlist is creating kind of like shadows around the lettering. Okay, there was a page on here with a bunch of boxes and I thought it was really cool because you could see a lot of the box flaps opening, kind of pouring out. There was a bunch of mailers with labels kind of like poking out and curling out. And I was like, this photo has so much depth. It's going to work really well when converted to be 3D or to be a phantogram. So I'm looking at it right now and it looks like one of the flaps is almost like peering over onto the other page. It's so cool. It's so cool. Oh my God. Okay, quality check went well. I'm so glad that I did send off all of those copies to be printed by Mixam, but thank God this sample copy that I ordered from Office Depot, it came out really great. One little error though, I am noticing an error. It has nothing to do with the 3D images, but on the back, I'm giving acknowledgement, I'm giving thanks, and I spelled acknowledgements wrong. Typo. Now there's going to be 100+ copies with that typo in there, but maybe no one will notice or care. And also, that's the beauty of zines, is that you make mistakes like that and it's very forgivable. And it kind of adds to it, you know, it adds to the charm. And then the back, that's a picture of me and I'm wearing 3D glasses. Isn't that cute? It's been a pleasure learning how to do 3D images in this way, and I think I'm gonna continue doing it. It was very fun being able to learn how to take the photos and convert them to 3D images, put them in a zine. And I actually told Barry that when I talked to him and he showed me his book, I was like, this is so awesome. I get to learn about this and maybe I could put it in a zine. And he highly encouraged that. So I can't wait to tell him that I made an entire zine thanks to him. So the way that 3D imaging works, I know it's confusing because there is a such thing as 3D print where you make things like actual 3D print, like things like you could print out a pencil or you can print out a pair of scissors or something. You can 3D print a lot of things, but what I mean in this sense are the phantograms, so the images that are made, so when you look at them through 3D glasses, they seem to pop up off the page. So the process, what you have to do to get this to work is you're taking a photograph of something from up above at a 45-degree angle, and you're taking a picture in front of your left eye, and then you're taking a picture of the same exact thing in front of your right eye. And the reason for that is because those two images, one is going to be in red and one is going to be cyan or blue, because when you put it together and you're looking at it through 3D glasses, your brain does this weird trick where the other eye is blocking out the other color, which gives it that optical illusion. I highly recommend you checking out Barry's work and then to check out David Starkman's tutorial that's on the website mentioned in the description, because it teaches you a lot about the basics of 3D photography. A lot of it is just about making sure you're capturing the depth in your photo. And in order to do that, you do have to take the photos from two different perspectives. It's really, really interesting stuff. Being able to practice it and see a lot of daily things come to life like that through print on paper was incredible. And it helped me see my world in a new way, which I really appreciated. So thank you, Barry, for teaching me about this cool magic of 3D photos. It's really cool. 3D imagery is awesome. I learned so much from just making this zine. One of the rewards that comes with the zine mail is always a jumbo thermal stickers. So these are the ones I'm making this month. It says Zine Club March 2025 because it will be the March 2025 issue. And it's a picture of me wearing 3D glasses. That's my logo, and it has some smiley faces and stuff. And a thermal printer basically prints out stickers, labels, receipts, and it uses heat to press the image on there. So that's why there's not a lot of color to it, but it still looks pretty cool. And this is usually what my zine club expects every month. So I'll design a sticker, and then on the back, I'll handwrite a thank you note. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. My zine club is capped at 150 members because that's how much work I can handle in a month. Like I mentioned earlier, I do everything by hand. So yes, I got the zines printed because that helps me out a lot. 150 copies of a zine is a lot of work to print and bind yourself. And for the first year and a half of my zine club, I would do it all from home, and it was exhausting. I got burnt out a little bit. So now when I can, I'll try to outsource it. And when I say I can, I just mean that I need it by a certain time. So sometimes if I don't wrap up the zine by a certain date and try to send it out to print, I won't get it in time for my zine club. And I want to make sure everything's timely, so they're getting things in a usual schedule, because that's how I operate personally. I would hate to be promised one thing, expecting one thing, and then get it a month later, or just, have it be unorganized in that way. So now that the zines are being printed, I have the time to be able to write all the handwritten thank you notes. And then I also have to address all the envelopes. So these are the envelopes I'm using. Ta-da! These are, I think this is more than I need actually. I think I ordered 300, but I only need 150. So half of these are gonna be used for other mailing materials. I address all of these. I write their address on it. I also put this stamp on it with my P.O. box. So this will be stamped in the return address spot. And I also like to use my own stamps. I have an ink pad here. And then I also have this stamp that says good stuff inside, and it has a little cat giving a thumbs up, and it's kind of teary-eyed because he's so excited. I like to stamp that on the back. So I like to embellish the envelopes a little bit, just because I think it's really cool when I get snail mail and someone puts a lot of effort into how it looks. It's cute, and that's what my club is. It's a snail mail club. So I like to be able to do little touches like this. But for now, I can't do everything all at once. So today, what I want to focus on are the thank you notes / stickers and addressing all the envelopes. I like to tell my club to make sure that they've updated their address. As soon as you know your address is changing, or you have to move, or maybe you got a P.O. box and you want your mail to go to the P.O. box, make sure you update it, because it really helps streamline our process. Because like I'm saying, I'm doing this is a big load to me. Like doing 150 is a lot, and I want to make sure that people get what they pay for. So this month's sticker, like I said, I'm about to print it through my thermal printer. This is my Munbin thermal printer, and it's pretty cool. I like using it because it comes out a little warm. So I like touching it, or even just like seeing how far it could go across my room, because it has a stack here. These are all oh, there's pink in there. There's blue and pink. I just want to print on blue. I guess I'm gonna run out of blue and have to print it on pink. We'll see how that goes, but I'm gonna show you how it prints out. I'm gonna press, I need 150, and let me print it. Oh, it's taking forever because these are bigger sheets. I'm using 4x6 stickers. When I use the smaller ones, they come out so fast. And now I just wait till it's done. Okay, so not much time has passed since it stopped. It stopped because it ran out of the blue. So I'm gonna put it in the pink and show you guys what it looks like. It's still gonna look cool, but I really just wanted blue. Well, you know what? This is kind of cool because the 3D glasses are blue and red, and I don't have red labels, but I have pink. So it's kind of close, kind of cool, kind of cool. I usually buy color labels. I usually buy these and save these for moments like this. So for the special stickers, they cost a little bit more. So I try not to use these for labels on my packages. Sometimes I do, just because it looks cool, but I usually use white ones that I get for free from UPS. So if you have a business, this is a little tip, okay? If you have a business and say you ship through UPS a lot, you don't have to. You don't necessarily have to, but If you go on their website and say that you do use UPS to ship, they'll send you a lot of shipping labels for free. So I've actually gotten a huge box full of so many different labels and I paid $0 for them. Let me show you actually. So here's where I keep a lot of my paper and stuff, but in this box is a bunch of labels. So inside here, look at these rolls that I have. These are fan labels. So basically like the pink and blue ones I was showing you that fan out and I was trying to stack it. That's what these kind of labels are called. And I don't even know if you can see how big this stack is. I think it's over 1,000 labels or something. All plain white labels to use for shipping. You know, when people have their address on it and their tracking and everything, I use these, and they gave me a bunch of these rolls, and I have a bunch of mailers, and there's a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff that you can get from UPS and USPS for free if you run a business like I do. I don't think that you have to show your seller's permit or your business license or anything like that in order to get these materials. All I did was just put in a free order on USPS and UPS, and I was able to get a bunch of these rolls, these labels, a lot of other shipping materials like mailing pouches. So I have these for when I ship internationally. When you ship internationally, you usually have to include the invoice on the outside of the package, so the mailing system in the other country knows what you're shipping to their country. So they have these things, these mailing pouches, and it's something that you stick onto the outside of your package and you slip the invoice into this. And this was free. I got this from my local post office. I just put in an order. So I get a lot of these things for free because I need them for my business. So what I'm saying is, like, get it if you're gonna utilize it. So hopefully that makes sense. I like to use those for the shipping labels, but for these, I do spend money on them, but I like to be able to just have the pop of color. It's fun. So sometimes if you get a package from me, you might have a pink or a blue label because I was feeling fun, but I usually like to keep it for the freebies for my zine club or for other stickers. I make some of these thermal stickers and it says, "Imagine not liking me and I'm at home doing arts and crafts." I make these because they come for free in shirt orders. So if you buy a shirt with this design that I made on it, it'll come with this sticker for free. So I like to use them for freebie stickers in my orders, not necessarily for the tracking and address labels that I put onto the packages. That's just me personally though. My chair ended up over there because I was trying to see how far my labels would go. I was looking for my chair, honestly. Oh, where'd this come from? $1. Okay, so now I'm going to write thank you notes on the stickies, and after that, I will transition to addressing all the envelopes. And let's see how this goes. Okay, kinda almost done with the labels. Actually, not really. I still have a lot to go. I've only been doing this for like 20 minutes, but I thought it was pretty funny that while I was filling this out, I got an email from Barry, and I'm on his email list, and he sends an image a week. Look at what he sent me. So if you sign up for Barry's newsletter, you get things like this. And Barry, I mentioned this before, but Barry is the person that taught me how to make 3D images. So he'll send these, and in order to see 3D images without 3D glasses, you cross your eyes basically. So here's an example he puts in the email. Cross your eyes while you're looking at this and it'll pop out at you. Also, you could just stare at these two photos. I think it's called free viewing. I'm not that familiar with free viewing because I couldn't do it. So some people's eyes can't do it, and for this one where you look at two of these straight on, one with the right, you look at this with your left or something like that. I'm probably getting that wrong, but I couldn't get it to do what it needed to do, so I kind of did not do a lot of research on free viewing. But when you cross your eyes, it pops out, and then if you have 3D glasses, that'll pop out too. Wow, Barry did a really good job with the second pic of the dog. His tail is literally leaping out of the screen. It's so cool. I have to do a lot more practice with my 3D images, because I noticed with my zine, a lot of it picked up some ghosting. So basically when you're making 3D images, it's impossible to get it perfect the first time. It's actually really hard to get the 3D effect to pop out at you the first couple of times doing it. It took me months to get it down in a way that I was like, okay, I'm comfortable with this, but I still feel like I need a lot more work, right? I have to practice this a lot to get it down to the way that Barry and his colleagues do. But it's really impressive to see other people's work on this, because it inspires me in my own. So like I was saying, in my own zine, I realized I got a lot of ghosting. So that means that when you're looking at the 3D image, our brain is blocking out one or the other while you're viewing a 3D image. That's what gives it that optical illusion. But ghosting happens when one eye picks up some of the color from the other eye. So the ghosting, a good example of this, because I can't really show you, it's not like I could put this on the lens and have you see what I'm seeing. But if you ever watch a 3D movie, do you ever notice how when you're watching it, sometimes you could see the layered image? You could almost see like a little layer of them, but off to the side, and it kind of disrupts the way that you're viewing it for a second. It almost puts you back down to earth, like, oh, I'm watching a 3D movie, because I'm seeing a little bit of their ghost pick up off the image. That's what ghosting is. So when I printed mine, a few of my images do have ghosting. It's not too terrible, but it's like that effect when you're watching a 3D movie and you kind of see the 3D layers in there, like your eyes catching a little bit of light from, or a little bit of color from that only the other eye is supposed to see. It almost makes this creative process a bit mathematical, a little bit, because you have to learn a lot about depth, and that's what Barry teaches in his book. So the very first page in this book says, drawn phanograms have been used since the early 1900s to illustrate textbooks on geometry and technical drawings. It's funny that this is how it looks, because it's very geometrical. It is very much geometry, but it's cool, like I said, to see Barry's work and see him do really great work with it. It inspires me when I make future 3D images. So this is the progress I'm making with the stickers right now. Like I said, I have the blue and the pink, right? It would have been nice if it was red, because 3D glasses are cyan, blue or red. Cyan is like, I think, the correct term for it. But anyway, what I'm doing is writing thank you notes on the blue ones with red ink, and then writing on the pink ones with blue ink. So it's like a nice little, it's giving homage, or like a little nod, Easter egg, if you will, to the 3D element of it all. I love adding little small touches like this. Maybe someone will notice it. Maybe it's just ink to them and they don't notice, but I really like that. Like being able to see like, okay, this side's pink, but just let's pretend it's red, okay? And then to have the blue ink and vice versa. It's just really fun for me. Like, look at how cute. So this one, red ink. This is how the front of the sticker looks. It's blue. This one is the pink one, aka the red one. I don't know. Stuff like that. I nerd out for stuff like that. But anyway, I have a lot more to go, and I just put on a podcast. I listen to Rotten Mango or something like that while I'm working through these, because it does take quite a bit of time. I just wanted to talk about why I even tried making this 3D zine, because I realized that's probably a little off-putting to hear. It's like, why do it then? A lot of people ask me sometimes, why do people make zines? Why do people make them available? What's the point? And I think the point for me is that I like to challenge myself, not only as an artist, but as a zine maker. To me, I don't know if this is going to come across as arrogant. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just being honest. Making zines is really easy for me, and not in the sense that it's easy for me to execute them or come up with the ideas, but while I'm doing it, it's very intuitive. Over time of doing it for years, it's become second nature to me in the way that I'm very in touch with myself and very in touch with what I want to accomplish through this medium. So when I start creating it, I feel like I'm channeling a lot of things that are not always aware to me in my real life, you know? Like, this sounds a little woo-woo, but I feel like I'm channeling something bigger than me sometimes, and that's why it comes out so easily. And that's hard to explain. I'm not saying it comes out easily, that I was crying trying to make the zine because I was frustrated, but the thing about it is, like, once I get it and once I understand how to do it, I enter that flow state where it's not always easy, it's challenging, but that's the fun part for me. That's what makes it really fun. I feel like I'm someone else when I make my zines. Not necessarily not me, but like the people that came before me a lot of the times. I saw a TikTok once, I don't know who said it, I'll try to credit them and so you guys can watch the full thing, but they said that when you make art, sometimes you're communicating things that your ancestors never could. I think that's really powerful, even for something as silly as a 3D zine, you know? I'm not saying anything particularly deep, I'm not saying anything political, I'm not saying anything that's that moving, but it means something to me. And that's a privilege that I get to make art in that way that speaks to me, that maybe speaks to people before me or people that look like me that feel like they can express themselves in this way because maybe they're stuck doing something else in life that they don't want to do, or maybe they feel like they have no choice but to work a specific job, so it gives them less time for their artwork. I'm aware of all of those things when I make my work because I think it's important for me to continue making my art so I can show people like that they can do it too. And it may be hard for them to find the time or find the resources or something to be able to like have the free time to make art, but I feel like when I show up as myself and make the zines that I want to make, it is impacting someone, even if I don't always see it. That's why I think zines are important, is that not every zine has to be this deep thing. Those are important zines, and I love those zines. I love zines that talk about the information that is valuable to our society, or maybe things from our past. I think it's really important to talk about history, where we've been and who we were. I also think it's very important to look at things through the lens of what I am, the lens of being a woman, a Black woman, a Polynesian woman. I'm a Black and Polynesian woman living in America. There's a lens to that I think is important, but anything I make is coming through that lens, you know? Sometimes people feel like they have to make these really heavy zines touching on topics that are very polarizing or maybe political, but my identity itself is political. Anything I do is making a statement because I do it. Same thing with you watching this. You could come from a different background from me. Maybe you're also from a marginalized community. Maybe you identify as someone that's not always understood. Maybe you're neurodivergent like me. Maybe there's so many possibilities. It's not just being a person of color or a woman. There's so many things that are misunderstood in our society. And by you making your zines, no matter what you choose them to be, it's impactful. It's important. It's making history. I think it's really important for us to make zines, especially in this time. You can say whatever you want in your zines, but just keep in mind that what that topic is, what you choose to do is important because it's coming through your perspective. Everything's coming is from a lens that even if you're not aware of it when you're making it, it's doing something for someone that maybe you didn't intend for it to do. Me making this and crying while making it, it was challenging because if I didn't create it the way that I saw it in my head, I was gonna feel like I'm letting myself down, parts of myself, not just me. That's what I mean about something beyond me. It's like that image came into my head for a reason, or that idea came into my head for a reason. I met Barry for a reason. Barry inspired me to make this zine for a reason. All of those little things that add up to this idea. I feel like if I don't execute it, it's like, okay, well, that was all for waste. That's not necessarily true, but that's just how I feel sometimes when I have an idea for a zine and I can't execute it exactly how I want it to get out of that. Like if you struggle with that too, of like, I have to make it this way that I'm seeing it in my head. I try not to get too caught up in that, even though I did cry and get frustrated. That's also just part of me being autistic. And sometimes it's hard for me to process what's going on. And it's a little difficult for me to communicate things sometimes, even to myself. So I get frustrated and I cry sometimes. But besides the point, if you could relate to that, if you could relate to anything I'm saying, to get over that hump of frustration, that was, why did I say hump? To get over that hill, I guess you could say, is to just start anyway. Don't get it perfect, get it done. I always say that. I actually have a video about that. If you want to listen to my perspective more about halting your process because you're afraid of it not coming out right or not coming out perfect enough and you get caught up in that mindset, please watch this video I made. Hopefully it gives you some really good advice and tips about how I overcome that. To get over that, I just kept doing it. And it doesn't mean doing the zine. I just kept practicing the 3D imagery. Like I said, I would walk around and just see stuff out in my life, in my daily life, things that I'm experiencing that I want to share with my zine club members, that I want to share with whoever's reading the zine. I want them to see life through my eyes. I just kept practicing making the photos. Maybe I wasn't able to compile the zine exactly like I wanted to in that moment. I just shifted my focus to something else. It's still related, but it's leading to a bigger thing. So that's what I do, is that I just stop trying to look at the big picture so much and how it's going to turn out and focus on something I can control. When that process was getting a little bit too challenging for me, what I did was just focus on, okay, how can I take better photos from my left eye and from my right eye? Because that process was fun. Stuff like that really helps when you compartmentalize it and break it down into littler steps. That's something that helps me when I come across like creative blocks or zine blocks, art blocks, writing blocks. I break it down into something that's manageable so I don't break down. I still broke down because sometimes I lose sight of that. You know, I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect. I make a lot of mistakes, and sometimes I'm viewing things from a biased perspective. I was channeling a lot. I feel like when I'm making my art or making zines, I'm downloading stuff from somewhere else. Like that's that flow state I'm talking about. And you're not in your body. You're channeling something else. That's how I feel when I make my stuff sometimes, is that I'm not always here. I kind of lost track of what I was saying. Sometimes when I talk, I black out. I know people laugh when I say that, but there's also another group of people that know exactly what I mean. I was saying something, I was on a roll there, and I felt it in here, and then I happened to look away from the camera and I looked at something else and my mind went somewhere else. But making the 3D zine was challenging, like I said, but I really do like to challenge myself and find new and fresh ways to approach my work. Making zines is something that comes natural to me. And like I said, that doesn't mean easier. It's just something that I understand. It's a language, I think, that I get it. I love being able to express myself with this platform. It means a lot to me. I understand the ethos behind zines, the way they've done it in the past and the way they've evolved over time. I understand it. I get the concept of it so well that it's like if someone were like, hey, Brie, you have 5 minutes to make a zine about this topic, do it. I could do it, you know? Like I said, I'm not trying to sound like an asshole by saying that. I'm just saying, in order for this process to still be fun for me and also for me to evolve as an artist, I like to challenge myself. And I want to say that sometimes when I challenge myself, I think that's when the conversation comes up that I don't make real zines. People have said that to me. I have a video about this where I debunk the real zine myth, but because I'm so visible online, a lot of people do not like what I'm putting out because they don't think it aligns with what zines are. The ethos of it, the way that I make zines is still in the same way that I think zines have always been done, is that it's accessible. I think people see my zines, and because they're so different, sometimes people think that I spend a lot of money to do it or that I have certain resources that they don't have. And that's not true. Like, a lot of my zines are made out of trash and cost me $0 to make. I also like to buy my zine supplies very cheaply. Like, you guys have seen my videos that I post of my hauls. I hate that word, haul, but you've seen where I've sourced my materials, and I usually get them for pretty cheap, but a lot of times I get them for pretty free. Like, I just like to utilize whatever is around me, and I don't like to spend a lot of money on them, but they are expensive, I guess, in the terms of my energy and my love. I do pour a lot of myself into my work, and it means a lot to me. So when people resonate with it and they like it, that's awesome. But I also do get a lot of hate online, which is valid. I could take criticism. I'm an adult. But at the same time, it's like, oh man, I think it's misunderstood. I think people just see what I created out of maybe nothing, out of trash, and think that I spent a lot of money to be able to do that. It's just, I'm thinking outside the box. I'm trying to challenge myself. And that's what I love about this medium, is that you can challenge yourself in so many different ways that don't cost a lot of money. Like me making this 3D zine did not cost a lot. The software that I downloaded that Barry suggested in his 3D pop-up book was free to download. And there's also an app that helped me understand the depth of my photos more, and that was free to download. And also all the stuff that I took pictures of, it cost zero money. I just used my phone and I was able to manipulate the images through the free software or through the free app. A lot of these things that I do, it's challenging because I have less, you know? That's what I think is so cool about this medium, is that you can have nothing and you can still create something pretty cool, pretty incredible. I didn't realize that 3D printing or 3D imagery Fantagrams and stuff like that was so accessible. But I learned from meeting Barry that it is, and that anybody could do it. And I think that's where I fell in love with this, because it falls in line with what I believe about zines. Anybody can do it. It's not a matter of if you have the money or fancy equipment or expensive printers. That doesn't mean that you can't spend money on your zines. You definitely can. Do what's accessible for you, right? If you have Photoshop and you're able to afford Adobe Cloud or whatever it's called to have all those apps, awesome. But if you don't, you shouldn't feel like that's a deterrent from making your zines. I feel very inspired by things I see out in everyday life, and I try to see, how can I incorporate that into a zine? Because it's challenging. It doesn't always have a negative connotation, right? Challenging to me, when I hear challenging, I'm just like, wow, that's gonna be fun, even though I'm crying. Like, even if I'm shedding tears, that was kind of fun for me in a way, because it was pushing me out of my comfort zone. I had no idea what I was doing, and I was out of my element, and it made me feel uncomfy. But people will look back on this, right? In the future, it'll be really cool for someone to look back on my zines, and they'll see what I thought about what's going on in the world. They'll see my opinion on what I thought about the hardships of today for all of us, especially economically in this country. But in another way, they'll see my joy. They'll see that I still found time for happiness despite what was going on in my external world. They'll see something like this, Bree's World of Things, and they'll put on the 3D glasses and they'll see that I was able to find joy despite it all. All right, so I just finished addressing, well, I didn't put their addresses and names on it yet because I want to show you how I prepare them to ship, which I think might be helpful advice if you're sending snail mail with stamps. So that's something about my club, the zine club, the IRL tier, the ones that get the zines and extra goodies in the mail. It's run through the traditional snail mail system. So I use stamps on them, so there's no tracking, but I want to show you how I prepare the envelopes. So when I finally get them, right? Because this is a sample print. It's not perfect. You can see that there's the white lines. I don't want any of that stuff when I print the final thing, or when I get the final copies. They won't look like this, but this is a good idea of what it will weigh, right? This plus the 3D glasses plus the thank you sticker plus the envelope. In order to predict how many stamps I'm going to have to put on this, all I have to do is just weigh it. So I have a little scale here. So what I'm going to do is just place everything on the scale, and it weighs 1.5 ounces. So because I don't have the zines yet, right? I only have the sample copy. I don't have all of the copies that I need to send out to my zine club. A good way to prep the work beforehand, so I have less work in the future when I get the zines, is to stamp them ahead of time. So that's why they're not addressed yet with the names and the address, because I'm going to do that. And at the same time, I'm going to put the stamps that they need on it, put it aside for later. So when the zines come in the mail, all I have to do is put everything into the envelope, seal it, and then ship it. It makes the process a lot easier. One thing I want to note too, it says it weighs 1.5 ounces, right? So that means I need one stamp and an additional ounce stamp. So that's something that I think a lot of people don't know about, because this happened to me. I didn't learn about this until I think 1.5 years ago, but I have forever stamps, right? Because I'm in America. So we use these forever stamps. If you're international, I use these international global stamps. They all cost differently. I'm going to explain it in a minute. And then also for the American stamps, I use these additional ounce stamps. So this can be used in lieu of using 2 of these. So to further explain this, just in case this helps anybody that sends mail this way, it weighed 1.5 ounces, right? Most people, this is me included, I used to do this, it weighs 1.5 ounces, so I would put 2 forever stamps onto my envelope. And the current price of these are 60 cents a stamp. So that means I would be spending about $1.20, or actually, yeah, $1.20 to ship it. But the additional stamps, you use it if it's under 1 ounce. So it's not a full ounce, which would call for 2 stamps. It's a little bit under 1 ounce. So I use these stamps, and this costs 28 cents right now. So technically mailing it cost with one of these stamps, right? So one, here, let me just do it because that's how many stamps these things need. So if this was going to an American Zine Club member, I'll put 1 forever stamp on it and 1 of the additional ounce stamps. which covers the price of the half of an ounce. Because like you saw on the scale, it was one ounce and a half. This cost me 88 cents to ship instead of $1.20 if I used 2 stamps. It'll still send either way. If you want to use 2 stamps, use 2 stamps. It'll still cover it, but just so you're saving a little bit of money, you can use the additional ounce. However, if this was international mail, the international stamp cost $1.60, a little bit more expensive than the American stamp. So in this case, I would have to put 2 international stamps. So unfortunately, when you send internationally, they don't have this stamp that we have, the additional ounce stamp. At least the people at the post office said that doesn't exist. So I would have to use 2 of these. So it does cost more for me to send internationally, but that's okay because I don't mind. Like I want to be able to send it to them. That's important to know, that when you send things internationally and you're using stamps with no tracking, each of their stamps cover 1 ounce of weight. But since it is 1 ounce and a half, there's no half stamp for international. So I actually have to pay the $1.60 to stamp it. I know the pricing thing is a little bit confusing and it doesn't make sense. I eat the cost. So when you sign up for my zine club for the $10 tier, the IRL tier, it costs $10 for everything that the $5 tier gets, right? So when you up the tier, what you're paying for, you have access to every other tier plus whatever's in your tier. And that's covering the price of the zine, and the stamps. But sometimes, like you just saw with the international mail, this cost me $3 to send. That's almost no profit, right? I priced it that way 2 years ago. And over time, with inflation and everything, the cost of stamps went up, all of that. I never raised the price because I choose not to. That's me personally. So if you want to be able to make a different tier for international club members, a lot of people do that. Like a lot of people that have Patreons, they'll have, if they're in the United States, they'll have a tier that costs a certain amount that covers the cost of the stamps and printing the zine and all of that, right? For Americans. But then international club members will pay a little bit more to cover the price, right? Because it costs more to send to outside of our country. Some people do that, which I really recommend you doing. If you know, the money has to come from somewhere, right? You can't just run yourself out of your business model to be able to send the zine. You know, I really want you guys to value your work, what it's worth, and pay yourselves. But sometimes things vary. Sometimes it's a little bit nuanced. The zine club to me is very special. I love being able to challenge myself each month to make a new zine. I really love being able to connect with my zine club members with the podcast. I'm easily more accessible on Patreon too. So if they DM me or message me or use the community board on Patreon, I see it more because, you know, it's a smaller audience on there compared to my YouTube channel or my other social media platforms. I don't always see every comment or message on those other platforms, but on Patreon, because it's a smaller community, I do see a lot of the stuff, and so it's easier for me to connect with them. So that's what I love the club for. And yes, of course, I want to be able to pay for this stuff. And in a lot of ways, they do pay for it. It's covering some of it. But when it comes to instances like this, where it's a little bit over the budget, I just eat the cost. I don't tell them like, hey, the stamps this month cost a little bit more, so can you send me more money? I personally don't do that. When it's months like this where I use more stamps or I do something a little bit more elaborate, like the 3D zine, and it has a little bit more effort put into it, I don't charge more based on that, just as a personal preference. I just think it's personally bad business to be like, I know I set the tier to this price, but this month it's actually this price, and like change it. I just keep it consistent, and the perk of them being in the club is that it will always stay the same. Maybe one day, I'm not saying that the tier of the $10 won't ever change. One day it may, but that's not always a good business model for other things, right? Like in my shop, if something was sent to a wrong address because the customer messed up and they gave me the wrong address, or they didn't include an apartment number, and with their order they pay for the shipping and tracking, right? If it got sent back to me because they made a mistake, they have to unfortunately pay for the shipping again because that was their mistake, you know? It's different. It varies is what I'm trying to say. But I hope the stamp thing makes sense. And like the breakdown, because I see that a lot of people have questions about these things, but there's not a lot of information online. Sometimes it doesn't quite make sense, or people don't know, why does that thing cost like that much money, you know? So I try to explain it. In case you are in the zine club watching this and you want to know why does this tier cost this much, that's why. But sometimes it goes over. And when it goes over, I just pay for it because I like doing this, and it's really special that it's capped at a certain amount, so it's not like I'm gonna be blown away by the extra cost of a stamp sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, oh man, I ideally want it to be 1 stamp per month, but I don't want to restrict myself on how I feel making a zine that month, right? Because this is my system for my zine club. At the beginning of each year, I write down on a whiteboard every month of the year. So I write January through December and leave a little space after it. And then I go through my old notebooks. I have so many zine ideas from notebooks from years ago that I write in notebooks and journals that I maybe didn't have time to do it in the moment, but I wanted to accomplish it at some other time. I look through those notebooks and I write down each month, this may be the zine idea I make this month. You know what I mean? So it's pre-planned. It's all stuff I had in mind. I'm not just phoning it in each month, whipping up something because it's like, oh my God, there's a zine due for Zine Club in March. I have to just come up with something. It's always pre-thought of. It's always premeditated. And there was always an idea that I had wanted to flesh out but couldn't at that time or during that year, and I'll put it on the calendar on that whiteboard, so a month before it's due I'm working on it. But what I'm saying about the cost of the stamp is that ideally the tier price I had in mind when I made it, I had it in mind that people were paying for 1 stamp plus the cost of the zine, and then also me paying myself back for the production of all of this, right? But that's with the assumption that every zine or every envelope and package that I send out to a zine club member will be the same each month. It's not. It varies. And that's based on my creative decisions, right? I don't want to limit myself because I'm trying to keep the weight of the zine or the weight of the package under 1 ounce. So it only uses 1 stamp. When I start creating it, who knows? Maybe it'll be 16 pages, so it's only 1.5 ounces, or maybe it might be 34 pages and it's going to cost me a couple of stamps. I don't want to limit myself and my creativity or what I choose to do with that zine based on how much is it going to cost to ship it. And I will be honest, that may not be a good business model for some of you. That's why I'm sharing it. This is my perspective. This is how I do it. But I'm not in any way saying this is how you have to do it. What works for me may not work for everybody, and it may not be as sustainable for everybody. But for me, because I'm already a business owner, there's a lot of stuff in my business besides the zine club, right? My shop, Bree's Tiny Print Shop, there's fees and prices of stuff I have to pay every day, and there are a lot of things where I have to just eat the cost because it's good customer service. Like sometimes packages get lost. That's something entirely different than a customer making a mistake and having to repay for shipping, right? If something gets lost at no fault of mine or no fault of theirs, I want to give good customer service, so I'll resend it or I'll refund them for it. But that doesn't always mean that my insurance for my business will cover the lost package. Sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes I'm resending something because something got lost and it could cost like $100 or something. Like, I don't know the value of it, but just as an example, if I resend it because I want to make sure they got what they paid for, and unfortunately it got lost or something like that because of the system, the mail system, if I make the choice to resend it, it's like, okay, that package is lost. I'm not getting that product back, and I just sent out new product. I'm not charging them for that. That's like, why would I charge them for that? It's not their fault. You know, if they could prove that it was lost and that they aren't just trying to get more stuff, you know? It's like there's these choices I make with my small business where I'm eating the cost, and I'm prepared for that because I am a business. And also I want to give good customer service to people that buy from me. I want them to have a good experience with Bree's Tiny Print Shop. And same thing with my club. I want my Zine Club members to have a good experience with Bree's Zine Club on Patreon. So if a zine weighs a little bit more, and so therefore it costs me a little bit more to send them, that's not something that I will change each month and fluctuate each month based on the cost of that. Sometimes I just eat it. I take it on because I want to give them a good experience with me. That's just my perspective, okay? Some of you watching this will be like, that's really dumb. That's really stupid, and that's fair. But the way I view my Patreon, it is a business venture in a sense, right? Because I am getting paid to do this. This is part of my job, but I treat it more as like this fun thing I get to do instead of like, I gotta make this amount of money on Patreon per month. You know what I mean? And not to say that you shouldn't care about the money. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying my zine club on Patreon is a priority to me because it's a way for me to connect with people. So the money is flexible in my mind. It's like, it's not this rigid thing that I absolutely need to be the same amount every month, because I'm not doing it primarily for the money for Patreon, right? My small business is different, my commissions is different, and even the other ways that I get paid through copywriting, and I have other jobs that I do to maintain my lifestyle and generate money for myself. But Patreon is one of those ways where it's nice getting the payday each month because it feels like I'm getting paid to be myself, and the amount that I make is flexible. Like I will pay for extra stamps if I have to. I will pay to get these printed, and if they're heavier and I have to pay more because they're printing more paper and using more ink, and they're saying, hey, this is actually going to cost you $3 this month or whatever, I'm willing to pay that and keep the tier of the IRL Zine Club consistent, because that's the kind of experience I want my members to have. If you're wondering what this is, these are the zines that I got printed. They finally arrived. So the last time I spoke to you guys, it was probably 7 or 8 days. So about a week since whatever I said the last time. I was waiting for these to come in so I can put them in the envelopes and ship them off. But I wanted to show you guys what it looks like when it comes back from print. I print with Mixam, which I'll link it down below. I highly recommend them. They do really good work. And they ship it so nicely. Look it's all packaged nicely so it doesn't bend in transit. There's a lot of bubble wrap in here. I keep that for when I have to ship orders out, so I keep the box as well. Another stack, the last stack, and I'm gonna keep the box. Like I said, I'm gonna put this underneath my desk for now. Here's what I ordered. These are for my zine club, and then I always have leftovers, so I'm going to list the leftovers, and they'll come with the 3D glasses. They'll be in my shop sometime next month. So earlier I was looking at the sample that I got from Office Depot. It was printed in a really rough way because I was just trying to see if it would actually be 3D when I put the glasses on. So this is my sample copy that I got, and you see how it has the margin on the edge. People always ask me how I get rid of the margin. That's a very good question. Most print places print out with a margin. So even if you order it professionally, like if you get it done at Office Max or FedEx or something like that, it always prints out like that, but the people working there cut it off for you. So that's what's called bleed. Usually you want to make sure that you have something there instead of that white margin. Maybe you'll extend this gray color up about an inch. It's like 1.25 inches that you put around your whole design or your zine page. Full transparency, your girl is horrible at math, and I gave you the wrong measurements for a standard bleed area. So a standard bleed area is typically 1/8 of an inch. So that's 0.125 inches or 3 millimeters on all sides of your artwork or your zine page or your canvas. I accidentally said 1.25 inches because, like I said, I am not the best at math, and in my head I was thinking of the correct one but saying the wrong one. And then we cut it off. And I say we because I used to work at FedEx office, so I know a little bit about behind the scenes. People think that, oh, if I send it to a professional print place, that it'll come out perfectly with no margins. No, we cut the margins off. There's printers that do print all the way to the edges, but for the most part, when people would send their work to me when I worked at FedEx, it would show up like this and I would cut it off, or they would have a bleed. So it would be a certain color here, so when I cut it, you wouldn't have remnants of white, if that makes sense, because sometimes the cut's not always perfect and you'll get a little bit of that in the final cut. So that's why it's a good idea to have bleed. So for example, this would be, you just fill in with a color. So that way when we cut it off, it looks seamless like this. So you see how that is? All you have to do is just add a bleed. I mean, I say all you have to do as if that sounds simple. It's a little complicated if you're not familiar with having to do bleed yourself, and trust me, I've learned this the hard way. In 2021, I was hired to make a zine for Mac DeMarco. Him and his team hired me to make a 20-page zine for his fan club that he has. He has an official fan club on his website, and I made the zine, and when I sent it in, I had to send it like 500 times because they were like, there's no bleed on this, we need bleed to send it to the final print. And I'm like, what? I don't understand. And so I had to learn all of that. Even though I worked in a print place, it was different from me doing my own work, because at a print place, I'm doing other people's work. So it's easier to understand. Also, I'm not connected to it as much, so I would just start cutting the edges off. I didn't really care like what's there or what's not supposed to be there. But when it came to my own work, I had a little bit of trouble learning that. So me working on that project with Mac DeMarco really taught me a lot about bleeds. So I know that doesn't really help because I'm not showing you how to make your bleeds or anything, but just showing you an example of what it looks like without it. It looks like that. So if I were to cut off the edges, maybe something might get cut off. But if I extend it and add a little bit of gray around or whatever color is around, when it gets cut, it looks really seamless like this. Also, another thing, when I make my zines at home, because a lot of you guys know that I print a lot of stuff here, people ask me like, how do you print without the margins? I do not print without the margins. They always come out with a little bit of a white thing around it. Let me show you. So here's a really good example. This is one of my Moonstruck mini zines. When I print it out, it comes out with all the margins around it. People think that they come out perfect and clean, and they ask me, how do you print it all the way to the edge? I don't. They come out like this, and then I use my guillotine cutter to cut the edges. So I have this swing line cutter that I've had for a really long time. It looks like this. Hold on, let me put my mic back on my shirt. Sometimes you can't always print to the edge. Some printers don't have that, and even though they do, like one of my printers has that option, it never prints to edge. It always messes up. So I got one of these, and I basically put this under the blade and cut off the edges all by hand. I have a video about that I'll link somewhere in the corner that shows you exactly how I do it, but this is a grassroots production over here, okay? I do everything pretty much by myself, and if I can get help, I do. So that's what this is, and I'm gonna review the final copy. I think it looks really good so far, but let me show you what it looks like. This is just an example of what I was talking about earlier. This is a perfectly good zine, okay? I don't want you to think that you always have to cut the margins off. You don't. Okay, so I'm gonna view it with my 3D glasses just to make sure that everything looks good. And it does, but this is what it looks like. You're probably viewing it where it looks a little bit layered, and that's just because you don't have the 3D glasses. Maybe you do. Maybe you have some laying around. It would be really cool. You'd be able to see all of this pop out at you. All right, looks good. Okay, and what I want to do now before I start packing them, I left a little space right here because I want to put a sticker with a barcode that leads to my YouTube channel, because I want the people reading this to see this vlog, to see how this zine was made, or to see behind the scenes of how I do run my zine club, scan this barcode. So I'm going to do that right now and put the sticker in all of the zines, and then I'm going to show you how I pack all of them. Stepped away for a second, but usually what I like to do is roll up the stickers as they come out. So I'll take something like a ruler and roll it up so it's easier for me to use. I should have been doing this as it came out, but I had something else to do and I stepped away. So now I have to roll these all up. Or I guess I don't really have to. No, I'm gonna do it. I hate the way that it looks when it's all splayed out like this. Then after a while, you don't really need the roller. It's good to do as it's coming out, you know, but I like to use it for the first couple of spins so it creates this little roll. Once I have it thick enough, it's easier to spin and make my own roll of labels. There's a lot of misprints in this one. Sometimes they don't always align onto the sticker. Look at how many got messed up before it recalibrated itself and got right. That happens sometimes. I think it's these labels though. Honestly, if you guys buy labels for your thermal printer, the green labels suck. I don't know why. The green ones always print out messed up. The stickers are on all of the zines now. So this is what I was trying to do in case it was a bit confusing. I wanted this sticker that leads to my YouTube channel so they can see this vlog. But it's not leading exactly to this vlog because I don't know when this is gonna post, but I do know by the time they get this in the mail, it'll be posted. So when they scan this, it should be my latest video. It should be. But if not, I'll try to put a picture of this in the thumbnail so people know that this is what it's about. Yeah, this is how I set up everything so I can pack them in the envelopes. I put them in stacks. These are the envelopes. It's a basket full of the envelopes already addressed and stamped. There's also the stickers in here where I wrote the thank you notes on the back. So I have like a little assembly line of stuff. Oh, and it might take me a little bit longer because I have to fold the 3D glasses. So before I put it in the envelope, I have to fold them flat like this. So this may take some time. In the last small business vlog that I did, I got a few comments giving me a hard time about the plastic on my headphones. They said it was distracting, but I'm the type of person, if it's not broken, I don't fix it. And these headphones are kind of old, so I put tape on them to keep them alive because they still work this way. Jump scare for some people. Anyway, okay, now I thought I'd pack everything and talk a little bit more about how I run my club, but I also want you to keep in mind that everybody runs their stuff differently. So how I do something may not be something that works for you. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. Doing this off camera so nobody clips anything weird. It makes it look sus. Okay, so like I said, not everybody wants to run a Patreon per se, but I run a Patreon and it's basically for my monthly zine club. So I send monthly goodies in the mail. And one piece of advice I love to give when people ask me like, how do you run a monthly mail reward club, or how do you make that sustainable for yourself? And that's the thing. You have to make sure that you are providing something, or the service you're giving is something that you love. So in order for it to be sustainable for me, I love what I do so much. Like I said earlier, I would do this for free. I do this for free a lot of times. Like a lot of times I'm mailing out zines or donating my work or providing these videos, you know? So this is obviously something I'm very passionate about, right? So make sure that you're picking something that you could do all the time, even if no one was watching, even if nobody cared but you, because that's what's gonna keep you sustained throughout this process. That's what's gonna keep you going, is making sure that you are providing something that you already love yourself. Say you're a clay artist, but you can't make a bunch of clay pieces for your monthly rewards because that's a lot of energy and a lot of time and may be very costly, and you want to have an accessible way to share your work with your supporters. You could be a clay artist primarily, but make prints of your clay models or your clay art and send it out monthly to people that support you. You have to choose a model that works for you. And what I like to do is I like to be transparent with the people in my club about when they can expect their rewards, how my process is. I like to be very transparent about how I do things so they understand the time frame behind it. That way they're not surprised, you know? Like doing stuff like this, showing behind the scenes, I think is really helpful. I know it's not sustainable for everybody because it does take a lot of energy, because you not only have to film it and do the work, but you also have to edit the video and all that stuff. And you also have a personal life and also other jobs. Like I do a lot of other things, but this is just something that's really important to me because I want people to understand, like, this is why you get your zine more so at the end of the month than the beginning, because there's a whole process behind it, you know? Like the transparency, I think, really helps people feel comfortable being in your club because then they know what they're getting out of it. But there's always nuance to that, right? You can always explain like, hey, I'm gonna be out of town, so this is why you may not get this particular reward at this time. But when I come back, here's what you can expect. Little things like that, I think, goes a long way. So that's the first tip that I would give if you're trying to run a rewards club or a snail mail club, zine club, or something like this, is to create a sustainable model for yourself, whatever that means to you, whether you're making zines, prints, stickers, maybe all of your rewards are digital and you don't have physical rewards to mail out, but you have a set schedule of maybe every other week you're posting a video for your supporters that only they get to see. You know, if that's sustainable for you and they want to accept those terms by being in your club, that's something you have to set up first, is pick something that you know you can do and won't burn you out too much, you know, like create a model for yourself and then be transparent about that. So like I was saying earlier, I have a whiteboard where I list all of the months of the year, and then next to the month I write out what the zine may be about that month, so I know ahead of time how I can plan for it, but also so I can let my supporters know what to expect for the month. So every month I try to put a post in my Patreon club that says what you can expect for the month of March, as an example, right? And then I let them know what I've been working on. I don't want them to think that they've just been giving me their money or giving me their support in general and I've just been doing nothing. Like, I don't want to give that impression. I want them to see the steps that I'm taking and where their support is going, where their money is going, and that I appreciate it. It creates a sustainable workload for me. It creates routine. And I think when you want to mix art with a business, it's sometimes good to have a routine. I know that a lot of people say, well, I have to be inspired to make something, and I understand that. But when I started making parts of my art into a business model, I realized I had to meet that inspiration with some sort of work ethic. I had to meet it halfway. That's something that I always suggest people keep in mind when they're trying to create something like this, like a Patreon or a monthly reward program, is that you have to have a schedule. You just have to. Once I started maintaining a schedule of like, okay, Mondays and Wednesdays will be reserved for working on the zine for my zine club, it makes it easier when it's due. I'm not scrambling around trying to make everything, rush everything and coming out with a shitty product. It's something that's thoughtful and intentional. And the only way I could do that was by creating a routine and a schedule for myself. And I know a lot of artists are not necessarily good at that or like to do that, but that's something I suggest if you're trying to make it a business. It's good to have a schedule for yourself. Otherwise, you'll burn out quicker. Once you create that model for yourself, you know how to accommodate your needs as they come up. So because I have a schedule that's, okay, these days are blocked out for Patreon stuff, that's just part of like my work schedule as a freelance artist. I have to make my own schedule. So it's like, okay, Monday, Wednesdays, Patreon stuff. Then Tuesday, Thursday, shop orders for my business that has nothing to do with Patreon. And then Fridays will be for content, and then Sundays will be for editing the content. I had to create a schedule like that so I wouldn't just explode with all of the things that I had created for myself. Because that's another thing too, when you make your own small business or you do stuff like this, there's no person telling you what to do. And I was so used to that when I worked retail for most of my life. I always had a boss, or I was the boss, but I had some other boss telling me how to lead others. So when I had to create my own thing, it quickly dawned on me after making many mistakes in my first couple of years that I had to create a system where I'm not just the employee, but I'm also the boss. I had to be two roles, but also enforce it on me. It's a weird, it sounds really complicated, but if you're watching this and you're pursuing this, you'll kind of get the hang of it as you go. It becomes very intuitive to each person after a while. So my model may not work for everyone to a T, but some of it could be implemented into your practice. Another thing that I think is important for you to keep in mind when you're running a monthly mail club is to be consistent. So it's kind of like the first tip of creating a sustainable model for yourself, but being consistent, whatever that means to you, right? That doesn't mean posting every day or posting every week even. It's just, if you say you're going to provide something in your club on a certain schedule, just make sure you hit that. Make sure you're consistent with that. And if you're not, just be transparent. Like this week, I'm going on a road trip. So I told my zine club that they can expect certain things to be different this week because I literally won't be at my desk able to upload things for them that I usually upload. So part of my monthly zine club is that I upload a new podcast episode every Friday. It's called Zine Club Radio, and every Friday I post a 30 minutes to an hour podcast where I talk about all things zines, all things my process, and then I also answer their questions that they have for me about anything they want to know about me or my zines or my process. But because I'm going on a road trip this week, this Friday, whenever the Friday is that they're supposed to be getting the podcast, they won't be getting one because I'll literally be out of town. I can't record it and I'm just gonna be having time off, personal time to myself. So I let them know. Little things like that go a long way. If you say you're gonna do something, follow through. You'd be surprised how many artists in the art world, not just with zines, but just in art scenes in general, don't follow through. And that's not a jab, it's just a reality. I've worked all sorts of art spaces, whether freelance or doing commissions for others and working with brands or working with people that want to hire me to make zines for them or make art for them or whatever. It's crazy how many people get blown away when you just turn in something on time. Like if you meet the deadline, because there's a horrible perception of artists as being a little bit like unreliable I don't know how to explain it, because I don't always think it's true, but that's what I'm saying, how society perceives us. Society perceives a lot of artists as being people that are like all over the place. And for the most part, that's true. I'm very scatterbrained when it comes to a lot of my ideas and my artistic process. But when I turn on business mode and it's now something that's not just for me, and I'm actually making something for someone, or I'm making something for a group of people, I think having a schedule and keeping to your word is very important for those relationships. But it's all about just being real with your supporters, just keeping them up to date, being as transparent as you can. That doesn't mean revealing every little thing about your process or telling every little bit about your life. I don't do that. But it's just about, you saw something on the About Me section of my Patreon, or you saw something that I said you would get from being in this club and from giving me your money. So I want to make sure you get those things. And if you don't get them, I need to explain why. Try not to list anything or make any big promises if you don't know if you could keep them or not. One thing I like to do to maintain consistency on Patreon, they have a scheduling tool. So you can schedule things ahead of time. I like to use that feature a lot. So if you know that you're going to be particularly busy with other things, I like to just schedule my posts. So a lot of times people may think that when I post something in general, not even just Patreon, but Instagram, YouTube, people see that I uploaded and they have a tendency to think that I'm online, which makes a lot of sense. You see someone post, you're gonna think, oh, they're online right now. But most times I'm not online. I just scheduled the post and then I comment way later if I see the comments, you know, because sometimes I get a lot where I can't, it's impossible to see them all, but I schedule time to reply to comments. So that's how I keep things sustainable for myself so I don't get too burnt out. So it's when it schedules, and maybe in the moment I'll be able to check in on it and see your guys' comments and reply to them. But most times I don't. I let it sit for a bit, and then a day where I have a little bit more free time, I'll go back to it so I can engage with everybody. Scheduling it really helps so you're not constantly having to do it yourself. That frees up some time too. So if you make stuff ahead of time and you want to be able to use that free time to now do other things, scheduling is great for that, because then it's like, okay, cool, I get to check that off my schedule. The scheduling tool really helps you delegate so you can free up your time to do other things. We're done. Here's the basket full of all the Zine Club mail. It will be going out shortly. I think I will drop these off tomorrow. I hope that this gives you some insight about how I run my monthly mail club, my monthly Zine Club, and helps you with your process, whether you're doing art prints, stickers, zines, digital goods, whatever. I hope that me sharing my process helps you with your process. And some important dates for my shop. I will be closing it April 1st because I have some other business matters to attend to and I won't be able to focus on my shop as much, but it's also convenient because I'll be busy restocking everything, mostly everything that sold out. So if you were interested in the bone folder keychains that sold out in February, they will be restocked in April. So like I said, I'm closing the shop April 1st temporarily, and then it will reopen with the restock and some new stuff like this zine. If you're interested in the 3D zine, I have some leftovers. I'm gonna list them as well as restock some of the sold out stuff April 18th. Those are important dates. If you are keeping track with my shop and you want to support me in that way, please keep an eye out for that. If you would like to join my newsletter so you get a reminder, that will be down in the description. Also, my shop is still open. By the time this posts, my shop will still be open, but it'll be closing shortly. And then there's other links as well if you wanted to follow me on Instagram or check out my monthly Zine Club. That is it for now, guys. I'm gonna go and I'll see you guys in the next video.